Something's not adding up with Victor Wembanyama's height, and the San Antonio Spurs are desperately trying to hide it. When Wemby got drafted, he officially measured 7 feet, 3.5 inches, without shoes at the NBA Combine. Case closed, right? Wrong. Recent photos are showing something that should terrify every Spurs fan, and it explains why the organization is suddenly panicking about their championship window. The red flags started appearing almost immediately. During his rookie season, Giannis Antetokounmpo faced off against the young phenom and made a shocking statement nobody paid attention to. After watching Wemby dominate with blocks and guard-like handles, Giannis told reporters, "He is not 7'3", he is way taller, and whoever said he's 7'3", that's a lie, really." This wasn't casual observation. Giannis was calling out official NBA measurements, suggesting Wembanyama had already grown significantly since the draft. Here's where it gets suspicious. The Spurs initially listed Wembanyama at 7'4" as a rookie, matching his combine measurements with shoes. Then, before his second season, they mysteriously downgraded his official listing to 7'3". Did the guy shrink? Obviously not. The exact opposite was happening, and the Spurs knew it. The photographic evidence is staggering when you break down the numbers. In the Spurs' official team photo from March, Charles Bassey, who's 6'10", clearly comes up to Wembanyama's mouth level. Using basic body proportions, a person's head is roughly 1/8 of their total height. Since Bassey reaches Wemby's mouth, which sits a quarter way up the head, you add 8¼ inches on top of Bassey's height. That puts Wembanyama at 7'6¼ inches. But the most recent photo is causing absolute chaos among NBA insiders. In mid-May, Wembanyama stood next to French prospect Maxime Reynaud, who measured 7'2¼ at the Combine. Using skull proportions where the nose represents the middle of the head, Wembanyama appears about 5.5 inches taller than Reynaud. That makes him 7'7¾". When analysts ran this through height simulators, it consistently showed 7'7". The dude has potentially grown over 3 inches since getting drafted. But here's why the Spurs are absolutely terrified of this getting out. In NBA history, there have been exactly 7 players who stood 7'3" or taller and had notable careers. Zydrunas Ilgauskas, Kristaps Porzingis, and Arvydas Sabonis at 7'3". Ralph Sampson, Rick Smits, and Mark Eaton at 7'4", and Yao Ming at 7'6". Out of those 7 legends, 5 either missed entire seasons due to injury or had careers cut short because their bodies broke down. The injury curse of extremely tall players isn't bad luck, it's biomechanics. Yao Ming's career was cut short by foot injuries. Ilgauskas missed multiple seasons with foot problems. The human body isn't designed to handle that height at NBA intensity. Wembanyama has already shown concerning signs, ending both seasons early, one for injury management, another due to a blood clot. The Spurs know if the world found out Wembanyama grew to 7'7", the media would go insane. Every sports show would discuss whether his career is in jeopardy. Every minor injury would be treated as potentially career-ending. The psychological pressure on a 21-year-old would be enormous, so they're desperately trying to protect him from that narrative. Recent reports reveal shocking information about San Antonio's strategy. Shams Charania reported that despite having a 21-year-old generational talent, the Spurs are actively looking to trade significant assets for aging superstars. They're reportedly interested in 37-year-old Kevin Durant and have shown mutual interest in Giannis Antetokounmpo. This makes no sense for a team building around a young superstar with a 15-year window, unless they don't believe they have a 15-year window. The Spurs have massive assets, the number 2 pick, number 14 pick, tradable contracts, and all future first-rounders. Why trade these for players with only a few good years left? Because they're operating under the assumption that Wembanyama's timeline is dramatically shorter than anyone realizes. They're not building long-term because they don't think long-term exists. Their actions confirm this. Instead of following Oklahoma City's slow draft building model, the Spurs started spending future assets to surround Wembanyama with win-now veterans. They traded for established players rather than developing young talent, signaling they believe their championship window is narrow and closing fast. A Kevin Durant trade makes sense from this perspective. Durant scored 27 points per game on 53% shooting, with 1.2 blocks last season. Those numbers beat any Spurs player who played 55-plus games. But their dream scenario is Giannis, who's 7 years younger and finished third in MVP voting. The combination would create the most physically imposing frontcourt in NBA history. The urgency becomes clear when you understand the context. Tim Duncan gave the Spurs a 19-year window to win 5 championships across 2 decades. With Wembanyama, they might be looking at a 5 to 7-year prime window at best. Every season matters exponentially more when you're racing against biology. What makes this tragic is Wembanyama's unprecedented skill set at his size. He moves like a guard, shoots like a wing, and protects the rim like a traditional center. Every additional inch makes him more dominant offensively, but exponentially more vulnerable to injury patterns that derailed every other player his size. The basketball world is witnessing something unprecedented. A player who might be the most talented big man ever, but whose career could be the shortest among generational talents. The Spurs are making desperate moves because they understand what we're starting to realize. Victor Wembanyama might be operating on borrowed time. The height that makes him unstoppable also makes him irreplaceable and potentially unfixable. The taller he gets, the shorter his window becomes.